Back to blow up the team. I don't know why. It feels like it's been like a million years since I've done this, even though it's only been a couple days. Been in like a whole other world playing Fallout 4, and like time is not making sense anymore.
This weekend was something else, man.
It really was. I don't know what it was either. I don't know why.
It's that 3-day holiday,
Nothing.
man.
3-day holiday. I've had a fucking 3-month holiday because of Corona. I haven't done
Fair.
shit. I occasionally work. That's about it.
Yeah, my
But
schedule's about to become hectic next week, so
yeah. Well, look at you, Mister working for the man in corporate America.
yeah, face this organization that shall not be named. Fuck you.
Gross organization. Anyway, today we're doing some MLB preseason grades. We're talking about the New York Mets. Oh boy, this is what I'm actually been looking forward to doing for a while. The Mets are in an interesting spot because their teams like looked like absolute dog shit in 2018 after getting off to an insane start. They got rid of Callaway, and then actually, well, okay, then this season came along. They started off horrible. Everyone thought Callaway was going to get fired in the middle of the year. Instead, they saved, and then they started to perform well. Had a really hot September. They didn't make the wild card. It was a long shot for them to make the wild card in the first place, but they didn't make it. Came close though. Um, they fired Callaway. I actually don't remember who's going to be their trainer or who's going to be their head coach this season. I looked it up. I totally forgot to write it down. Sorry about that. But yeah, they finally got rid of Mickey Callaway, and they made some interesting moves in the offseason. And overall, I think the team is just a very solid team. I think they're on the cusp of being really competitive. So, are actually just going to be really competitive this season. However, they did hit a major road bump in spring training when Noah Syndergaard, after having his first healthy season in 2 seasons, tore his UCL. So, looking a little rough, just right off the bat. Um, Luis Rojas is your new manager. Yes, since they hired Beltran, and then Beltran got caught up in that whole Astros cheating scandal, and they fired him. Save face. Well, they need to save face, but like, you just fired him because they don't want a cheater leading their team. Um, so let's get right. Oh yes, and also today we will be talking a little bit about advanced metrics versus traditional metrics, and talk about why certain articles, like the one I'm going to talk about at the end, are wrong, objectively wrong. Um, anyway, going into the lineup, for so Brandon Nimmo, uh, he's never gonna have a pretty average. He's got a really good glove, but he gets on base a lot. He won't walk a whole bunch necessarily. Like, he'll walk a decent amount, about at just a little bit above league average in walks. But one thing he's really good at is getting hit by pitches. He leans into pitches a lot, which is why I'm not that big of a fan of Brandon Nimmo. But he does. He's very very solid. Like, he will not move in the batter's box. He's got a batting stance that allows him to be fairly close to the box, and he doesn't flinch. And so, not that I don't like it, but he will occasionally lean into the pitch. But he won't. He puts himself in a position to get himself on base quite a bit, which is important for your first guy up. And so he will definitely a very solid, despite the average, will be a very solid guy to have up at the front. Uh, and he did get injured last season after having a fairly decent season. So hopefully, kind of his numbers will be pretty good. Um, Next up, Jeff McNeil. I love watching Jeff McNeil. I think he's actually like probably my favorite player on this team. He's very similar to DJ LeMahieu hitting wise. He hits for a good average. He hits with a little bit of power. He got injured at the end of last year, but for a while it was him and DJ LeMahieu both looking at batting titles, which actually would have been like the first time in ages that two teams from the same city won like big awards like that. But yeah, like his first full season in the majors last year in 133 games had a 318 batting average, 23 home runs, 75 RBIs. One thing he doesn't do so well is compared to like someone like DJ LeMahieu, who hits very similarly, is he doesn't walk as much. But listen, when you have a 900 OPS and you're hitting over 300, it's not a huge cause for concern. And at the end of the day, he also didn't strike out a whole bunch in the 500 at bats. He only struck out 75 times, It shows you he puts the ball in play a lot, and he hits it very well when he does make contact. So that's the most important thing. And so I think the Mets have a really any like I like watching this guy play. I think the Mets have a really solid guy in Jeff McNeil here. Next up, doesn't man doesn't need any introduction. Pete Alonso, absolute monster last season. He's living the fairy tale right now. 161 games, 53 home runs, broke Aaron Judge's record for rookie home runs. Um, the guy's got massive power, a whole lot of charisma, and I expect him to be very, very lethal at the plate in the shortened season as well. Um, and the biggest grope for him, he's got the power. He's got a couple of holes in his game, like the strikeout to walk. Definitely strikes out way more than he walks, but that's expected with a guy who has so much power. He's swinging for the fences, so he is susceptible to strikeouts. And his average is if you can get his average a little bit higher, like imagine what more he could do. But I mean, you can't really fault a guy who hits 53 home runs and drives in 120 batters. But the holes in the game are there, and you see it a lot with these big power hitters who have huge rookie seasons. Is pitchers figure them out, and so definitely might be a downtrend. Like not like obviously it's gonna be hard to compare how much he should hit in 60 games, but yeah, it's definitely watch see if pitchers have learned how to pitch around him better. But but regardless of the overall hitting, if he can get that more threatening batter's eye, not even necessarily raise his average, but raise his on base percentage, making even more of a threat. The guy's a monster and really talented player, and so yeah, that's his biggest like gap in his hitting, and then his fielding is kind of subpar. But overall, very very solid player, ridiculous power, really good to have. Michael Conforto, your next outfielder on the list. He has had a pretty quietly good career so far. Um, 33 home runs last year, 92 RBIs, 257 average, about league average in walks, walk ratio. The big thing for Michael Conforto is that he's a super streaky hitter. Like, listen, Mike Francesa has had a million bad takes. He thought that Glaber Torres and Davy Garcia and like one other prospect, I think Clint Frazier or another prospect was an average deal for Noah Syndergaard, who wasn't even having that great of a season last year. Um, that like so, but he was right in the fact that he, I don't know what just fell. Something fell on my guitar. I don't know what. That's kind of concerning. Okay. Anyway, um, he will go through these hot streaks where he'll hit over 300 and he'll tear up the league. He'll be the most threatening batter in the league, and then he'll go through these, where his bat's anemic and he'll hit below 200. So, the big thing for him is consistency. If he can get some more consistent number, like, if he can have these same stat lines without, going to the peaks and valleys, that'd be huge. But at the end of the day, he's got lots of clutch moments in him, and he's very good. And he's young, and he's done nothing but improve in every year he's been in the league. So I you can't fault him. He's a very good player, and really solid guy to have in your lineup. Next up, you got the great Robinson Cano. Had a rough season last year, only hitting 256 and struggling with injuries on and off, and some weird moments in the game. And he had this one play in Miami where if he ran out a ball, like he would have been safe, but he thought he was out. Like, he definitely had a very very hard season last year after consistently being one of the best players in the league. Um, it seems like things have been really downhill for him since he got busted for roids in 2018. I'm as a Yankee fan, I'm always rooting for him. He deserves. He's obviously hitting the end of his career, but you don't want to see a guy like this go out like that. So I expect a better performance. I think wouldn't be too drastic of a thing to say that he should be performing better. So definitely look for more out of him. Looks like Yoenis Cespedes might actually make it into the season for the first time in a while. In his last two seasons in 2018 and 2017, in the past 3 years actually, he's only played in just over 100 games. He's got really great power and a really great bat, but he, you know, hasn't been able to stay healthy at all since 2015. So, he's apparently looking good. I won't believe it till he's on the field and makes it through, the 60 game season. One good thing about the season, though, for him is he'll get the DH. And because Yoenis Cespedes is one of the worst fielders in the league, I think. He got a cannon arm. But, for every highlight throw, there's 10 horrible throws. And, in the World Series, his defense, I think, actually genuinely cost the Mets a game. And so that tells you all you need to know about his defense. Yeah, JD Davis as your last outfielder. He, you know, he had a breakout last year. In his previous two stints up in the majors, in very limited action, only a combined 67 games. Only hitting 226 and 175. Last year, he played in 140 games, had a 307 average, you know, 22 home runs. He's really that was his breakout. And so this year is going to be a full chance for him. He came in a lot of pinch hitting situations last year. This year he's getting the starting nod. I think he should definitely I obviously expect a guy who's never hit 300 before to hit 300 again after having a breakout would be a lot. But I think he'll definitely be in the upper 200s and definitely just a solid guy behind to have in your outfield. Um, Next up, you got Wilson Ramos. Mets fans last year really despised him, and there was some problems with the pitching staff not liking throwing to him. Um, he I think his biggest problem is the fact that he calls for too many fastballs. He hates trying to catch breaking balls, which you need to do when you're a catcher. But he is one of the better offensive catchers in the league, and for a while he had like a 20 or 30 game hit streak last season. That was nuts. But which suddenly made Mets fans forget that they hated him. So, and he also can split time at first base if they need to rest Pete Alonso. But the only thing you'd look at for Wilson Ramos is defensively what he's doing, because last year was a really bad defensive season for him, and just general catching relationship with catchers and pitchers need to have that good relationship, and they kept getting DeGrom and Syndergaard and everyone being really. There was a lot of leaked comments that they just didn't like him because they couldn't throw breaking stuff to him. So they had Thomas Nito as like I don't remember who he caught for, but anyway. So that's the big thing you need to look out for him, because his bat's solid, and that's the most important thing. Next up, you have last but not least, you have Ahmed Rosario. He's young. He's heading into his fourth big league season, and he's been a pretty solid shortstop. Defensively, he's gifted. Offensively, he's got some tools. He's definitely more of a defensive shortstop. He only hits 15 home runs with the 287 average and a really, really bad walk to strikeout ratio. Um, but overall, I think he is definitely, not a great bat, but a good bat, like a fine bat. It's fine. The bat is fine. So the Mets lineup is actually really looking threatening this season, and overall pretty solid. Really, if I had to pick breakout, like their two best bats are Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil, and then the rest are not outstanding bats like those two, but they are very solid bats. Um, Next up, going to the starters. Now, if they had Noah Syndergaard, this rotation would be one of the best in the league. I've been talking about teams don't have a Degrom Syndergaard punch. They don't have a Degrom Syndergaard punch this year. Marcus Stroman is a very good pitcher, but he is not, as locked down as a Syndergaard is. Sorry. So Jacob Degrom has gone has you don't need to talk too much about him. Everyone knows he's going to do. He's going to strike out a whole bunch of people. His win losses are going to look great because the Mets seem to not be able to hit when he plays, but he will be pretty dominant. I expect nothing but dominance from him every year. This now, he's been completely healthy the last two seasons. He's thrown 200 innings the last two seasons. He's had a really good ERA and really good strikeout stuff the last two seasons. Last season's numbers weren't as insane as his 2018 numbers, but they were still very good. Um, The big thing is looking will he 3P on the Cy Young Award, which would be kind of insane. But you know what? I see nothing that says Jacob DeGrom is suddenly gonna stuck now. But anyway, going next, Marcus Stroman. This is a guy you either love or hate. I kind of like him as a pitcher. He's not a huge strikeout guy. He's very much a pitch to contact type player. Um, the Mets got him in a ridiculous trade last year. The Blue Jays totally undersold his value, in my opinion. They got a lot of prospects for him, but none of like the huge prospects they could have gotten for him. And I was actually at the game where I was at the Blue Jays game I went to. It was right after that game when he got traded, and there's actually a lot of yelling in the dugout afterwards, apparently from Stroman, and apparently the cause is he was pissed he was going to the Mets. But then he posted on Twitter all pictures of him in Mets gear when he was a kid, so it's interesting. But anyway, the Mets decided, wait, we can trade for Stroman, and then we can get an even better trade from the Yankees. Ha ha ha! We're so smart. And then the Yankees didn't even talk to the Mets about trading for him. So anyway, I'm totally distracted now. Uh, really solid guy. Not the he's the polar opposite of Degrom and Syndergaard, and the fact that he is not a high strikeout, high velocity guy. He very much works a two-seamer, cutter, slider type approach, working right to left, and as opposed to up and down a whole bunch. You'll see upper fastballs from him because that's just how pitchers pitch today. But he very much focused on that two-seamer and cutter and slider all playing off each other, and so you'll get a lot of ground outs, lots of weak contact when he's on. And overall, he did have a good season last year, so you definitely should expect another solid season out of him. Steven Matz, he's had his up and down moments, but the last two seasons he's been around the league average in stats wise, and you know he has some stretches of being just a very solid starting pitcher, and I expect the exact same from him here. Not a bad guy to have your 3 hole. Another not so dominant as Degrom, but definitely overall a very good pitcher. Next was where we start to get into a little bit of trouble. Rick Porcello. You're taking a flyer out on him. The guy is only 31, but he's already pitched. Yeah, he's already pitched 11 big league seasons because he's been pitching since he's 20. He has fallen a long way since his Cy Young victory in 2016. 2017, 2018, he was below league average. 2018, he had an insane offense behind him to, give him 17 wins, but only a 4.28 ERA and decent strikeout stuff. Honestly, last year, dip in strikeout stuff, dip in a much higher WHIP, a 5.52 ERA. He got 14 wins because the Red Sox seemed to wake up their bats whenever he was pitching. But yeah, definitely like everything's been ticking down for him. His velocity, everything has been. It's been a shaky couple of seasons, though he has been healthy. He's been very consistently healthy. And the Red Sox game on too. He was the starter, and it was funny. They had Masahiro Tanaka pitching against him, and the Red Sox kept leaving the stat up whenever Tanaka was for when the Yankees or when the Red Sox were at bat. Tanaka has a 5 whatever ERA or some ridiculously high ERA against the Red Sox in his last 2 starts against them. And then Tanaka didn't have a great start, but had a good start. And Porcello gave up, like 6 or 7 runs or some crazy number. They also fired Dave Dombrowski after the game. Um, Up next in your fifth, but overall on Rick Porcello, you're taking a flyer on him. You don't you want to see improvement from him, but you want to see anything resembling that 2016 form or even his 2018 form. You need overall he is a fairly decent pitcher. And I think if he can't turn it around this season, you'll see him become kind of one of those guys who will move from team to team, be up and down a little bit more in the last couple of years of his career. But for a guy who's been pitching for so long and is only 31, there is a lot of time for him to turn it around, I think. Fun fact about Rick Porcello: 2016, when he won the Cy Young, first Cy Young winner to win it without getting the most first place votes. Uh, Justin Verlander had more first place votes, but more people left Justin Verlander off their Cy Young ballot. than Rick Porcello did, and so though Porcello had less first place ballots, he won it. Yeah. Anyway, uh, up last you have Michael Waka. 2018 he had a pretty good season but got injured, and 2019 was just overall rough for him. This is another guy. You sign him to a 1 year deal. You're filling him in, seeing what you get out of him. Um, he doesn't have as many years under his belt as Porcello, and he's had a lot more bad years than Porcello has had, and so this is another guy you're kind of just hoping, and this is kind of like to see what happens. And the idea was that Porcello and Waka were going to compete for the fifth starter spot because ideally this rotation would be Degrom, Syndergaard, Stroman, Matz, Porcello, or Waka, but now they're both going to get starting jobs, and so the starting rotation is significantly weakened. Like I was so ready to give the starting rotation an A, and then I remembered, oh, Syndergaard's out, and so it's definitely not nearly as good as it was before. Still a good rotation. Obviously, I have Jacob Degrom. I'm never gonna talk that on him, but it's looking a little ugly. Last but not least, the bullpen. Edwin Diaz. Um, Edwin Diaz was arguably the biggest trade of that offseason. Um, they sent over two top 100 prospects, and another guy to the Mariners. And because he just came off a year where he threw 73 innings, had 124 strikeouts, and a 1.96 ERA. Um, and then he had a 5.59 ERA, 7 losses, and blew a whole bunch of saves. Uh, really, really just tanked. Now, some things, which we'll talk about later, like his spin rate and his overall projections on things, he was still throwing very similar stuff to what he's throwing in 2018. So, you should not expect a 2019 for him to happen again. I would expect significantly better numbers this season. Obviously expecting a guy to throw like he did in 2018 would be ridiculous, but just regardless, it should be a significantly better season from him, and I'd expect that from him. But we'll talk more about him later when we get into the Forbes article. Seth Lugo and Dylan Betances are going to be your setup men. Um, Seth Lugo, really, really solid numbers over the past 2 seasons. He's shown himself to be a really effective bullpen arm last year, throwing 80 innings, 2.7 ERA. You know, and the biggest problem for him last year was that the Mets didn't have a whole lot of people to throw out there with him, because Jerry Familia had a really bad year last year, and it just wasn't. They didn't really have a whole lot of weapons out there, and so they got Dylan Betances, who was injured, to um, come up and uh, rehab him and get him halfway through the season. Well, the rehab part's over, and the season hasn't even begun yet because he tore his Achilles after throwing 2/3 of an inning for the Yankees last year. So yeah, you got a really historically dominant reliever to also back him up, and you have Jerry Familia, who, though he had a really rough season last year, 60 innings, a 5.7 ERA. He's had a bunch of really solid seasons for the Mets, and so these four guys make up a pretty dominant bullpen. Um, and like as you see in most bullpens, the rest of the guys are kind of interesting picks. Justin Wilson in limited action last year was very effective, and so hopefully maybe he develops into a surprise bullpen arm. Robert Gesellman hasn't really had that breakout that he had in his rookie year in 2016, so maybe you get something out of him. Um, Brad Brack had a rough year with the Cubs last year, so you're taking away from him, seeing what he can do. Um, the rest of your guys are all very much, filler, see what happens type guys. You have Jared Hughes you just signed. You also have Irvin Santana and Erasmo Ramirez in the minors looking to make roster spots. So you have to wait and see what happens coming out of summer camp this season. But would expect some decent things out of this bullpen. Going into our focuses now. Jacob DeGrom. Can he do the three-peat? I think so. The guy's been absolutely nuts. Um, I imagine I can't even imagine what it's like to be a guy who's already won 2 Cy Youngs in a row, going into another season with such high expectations. Um, the one thing I'm afraid of is he's going to try and carry too much of his weight. But he hasn't done it the last 2 seasons, and the Mets are significantly better this season. So hopefully, with more support for him, he'll put it be because that's the thing. Like the Mets never gave him a whole lot of run support, and when you give the guy run support, pitchers tend to throw better when they have their team. They're not get him out of the mindset where he needs to throw perfectly, and I don't think he ever has had that problem because we've seen 2018 and 2019. But just giving him leads will make him even more effective. And I think that the Mets have a pretty decent team to do that. Go next. Pete Alonso, Ricky Sensation. Uh, highly expect another big season from him. You know, you could see a sophomore slump from him because that same he profiles out as a hitter the way Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge do. Lots of power, big strikeouts, big time strikeouts. So hopefully you'll see a better batter's eye out of him. And 60-game stretch can either be insane for him or really bad for him. So because generally the rule of thumb in baseball is your first 100 at bats tell you how the season's going to go. And if his first 100 at bats come through and he's doing really really bad, he doesn't have that many more bats to really get it together. So he'll be a big part of this Mets offense, and a lot of the team is riding on his bat. Going next, Jeff McNeil. He can play a bunch of positions well, and he can hit all over the diamond well. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him play this season. He's got just great offensive tools, and he will be the guy that's. I don't see it will be said. It will be hopefully will be the main guy that Pete Alonso will be driving in. Going next, Edwin Diaz. Definitely want to see a big turnaround from him this season, and I think signs point to the fact that he should. And that's where we're going to talk about advanced metrics here. If we go to the next uh, thing, Forbes Mets closer Edwin Diaz wasn't nearly as bad as you think in 2019. Correction, he was. He was horrific. What this article basically points down to is that his advanced metrics, his spin rate, his the what batters were hitting against him, stuff like stuff that you can't really see when you look at just stats like ERA and blown saves, tell you he's throwing very similarly to how he did in 2018. You don't need to scroll down. It's fine. Which is what advanced metrics do. Because if Edwin Diaz was pitching in like the early 2000s and had that kind of a season, he would never see a closing mound again, barring an insane return to form. It might have even been sent down. But because we have advanced metrics to tell us things like his spin rate, like things that like his pitches are still looking really good, it tells us his potential to turn things around is obviously still there. And so this is a horrible season. Realistically, he shouldn't have a season like this again. But these are great predictive stats. The things that ERA and win loss and blown saves tell us is how he did. Though his stuff was insane, his ERA plus, which tells you how good he was compared to other pitchers, was the worst for closers. His fielding independent pitching, worst among closers. In his ERA, worst among closers. He blew a whole bunch of saves. He was horrible. Just because his stuff should be good, what happened in the field tells us how it worked. Though it should have been another dominant season from him, it wasn't. And so, yes, he was as bad as we thought in 2019 because the cumulative stats that tell us how someone did tell us how Edwin Diaz did. So, like for example, James Paxton had like a four, like a just below 4 ERA. It tells us he was slightly better than league average overall. It doesn't tell us that his thing doesn't tell us that his breakdown tells us his first inning is always horrible and then he dominates the rest of the game. Those are things that breaking down the game further can tell us. It tells us that his stuff looks really good, but there's some certain areas that just are. And then there was one guy, I think it's Mitch Keller in the Pirates. They actually have proven by using advanced metrics that Mitch Keller was just the most unlucky pitcher in the MLB when he had a 5 ERA. And so, Edwin Diaz is up there being, with advanced stats tell us that he's got really unlucky this season or something because, his stuff His velocity was there, his spin rate was there, his break was there, his control was there. Like, he still struck out nearly like a 99 batters in like 58 or 60 innings. But the fact is, at the end of the day, it didn't work. And so what advanced metrics tell us, okay, here's what he should be doing. Measurements like ERA and WHIP, though they're not good predictive measures of what someone is going to do, you can't look at, like example, Jacoby Ellsbury. This is obviously a hitter example, but he had really good offensive stats. Advanced stats might have told us, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't take a flyer on him, regardless of the injury thing, because exit velo or something. You can look at things that will tell us how they will do. There are hitters in the MLB that have insane exit velocity, and but they get robbed a whole bunch of hits or something, and that will that'll tell us what someone should be doing. And so that's basically the whole point. Is Mets fans love to point out article because not this guy was not the only one who said this, but the fact of the matter is advanced stats tell you what someone should be doing or what they should be doing, and it'll tell you what they are doing. Obviously, like okay, his spin rate's this, it's this, so his pitches are good. Okay, fine, but what happened when he's on the mound? Those cumulative stats tell you what happened when he was on the mound, and there is no stretch of 2019 where Edwin Diaz looked like himself. And so I'm sorry, he sucked. He still struck out a whole bunch of guys, but for whatever reason, if he just got unlucky, lots of barrels were found for him, and he blew a lot of saves. And so I expect him to do significantly better next season. I think this next season should be dominant from him, and I think that he looks good, but you cannot say he did not have a bad 2019. You, or well, not that he was not nearly as bad. No, he was just as bad as you thought he was. Because when you look at someone and you watch someone pitch and they are blowing save after save, you know what you already need. You already know. You know what your eyes have seen. Your eyes aren't entirely like obviously when you're looking at things, you can't see right off the bat. Oh, his fastball looks like he has a ridiculous spin rate, so he's actually doing good. Like advanced metrics tell us really important stats, but they do not tell us the entire story of what happened. They tell us what should be happening and what can happen, or what should realistically be happening. Because, for example, my last example, because I'm starting to talk too much here, Aaron Judge in 2019, he had some really rough patches, and in fact, going into a West Coast trip, it was saying, well, Aaron Judge has been hitting in the low 200s lately, but his exit velo has been increasing steadily. And when we see trends with hitters when their exit velo starts to rise, they'll start to produce more power. And as he's trending up through rate like good contact ratings and stuff. And sure enough, he hit like crazy on this West Coast trip. And so they could tell us what a pitcher should be doing and what they can do and what they but the fact is he wasn't it in 2019. This is a bit of a side rant, not entirely related to how they're going to do this season, but I just metrics are something I find super interesting in baseball because what they can show us, and I find advanced metrics to be far more helpful in talking about players than I do traditional measures like ERA and stuff. But at the end of the day, just because ERA and WHIP and win loss, okay, I'm not gonna lie, I do not give a shit about win loss for the most part, but like ERA and WHIP tell you things about how things actually happened. Because if someone presents to you a bunch of stats that say, look at all these stats, this guy he's in these upper percentiles for all these pitches and stuff, and you would say, oh, so he had a really good season. He must have dominated. And you see a 5.5 ERA, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. So anyway, rant over. Moving on to the grades. Jeremy, you have anything to say there?
You went a little in depth for me. Let's put it that way. You definitely lost me a while ago. I see your
I
point about the fact that um, advanced metrics aren't everything, and people take them, I think, a little bit too much as gospel. Um, Like, for example, I don't really care what his spin rate says. If it's not producing, it's not producing. Which
Yeah.
I think is the point that you were trying to get at here.
No, that's exactly the point I was trying to make. And like, my other example with Mitch Keller, he had a horrible 2019, but the advanced metrics tell us he has a lot to look forward to.
I think
So
the takeaway for me was it can be useful to look at what their potential is and what they could be doing, but it is not an indicator for how they actually did. Is what my takeaway was.
yeah, that's
Like
basically
you
the
can
takeaway
still
I
have
want.
a crappy season and still have like you can have a crappy season and still have a positive outlook.
Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to, you know, say is that it's okay, Evan Diaz had a horrible 2019, but these things look good for him, and so realistically, he should perform better this season. It's basically a very long-winded way of saying that.
Okay,
So
there you
anyway,
go.
let's get into it. Lineup B plus. Excellent 2 and 3 in Jeff McNeil and uh, Pete Alonso. I think Brandon Nimmo's a good leadoff hitter. But when your best qualities as a leadoff hitter are getting hit by lots of pitches, I'm sorry, I just don't care. And at the end of the day, their hitting staff is good, but it's not like they have insane like lineups like the Dodgers and who do we talk about? Minnesota. So that's why it's a B plus. Bullpen, honestly I'm giving it an A minus. It should be very good. I expect it to be dominant. I think this, if last year they were god awful, but they made good moves. They have really good weapons in there. Edwin Diaz gets to hit the reset button and show his true self. Rotation, this would have been the easiest A plus for me had Noah Syndergaard not been injured. Now they're a B plus. They have a really good 1 and 2 because like Jacob Degrom on his own. If you gave me Jacob Degrom with the Marlins rotation, I give it a B plus. I'd give it a B, or B minus. Okay, trying not to be too harsh, but Marcus Stroman's very good, and I think Steven Matz is pretty good, but you have two guys who are supposed to be competing for a fifth spot who have been really bad the last couple of years competing for that, who are now going to be in your rotation. That's a no for me, dog. That's a B plus. But overall, I expect the division race to be very tight here. It's going to be between them, the Nats, the uh, the
Where would your
Braves,
rotation
and
for
the
them have been
Phillies.
if Syndergaard had not?
If Syndergaard had been healthy, A plus, no question.
Okay.
Yeah, him and Degrom back to, like. And by the way, I said Syndergaard didn't have a good season last year. He had stretches of absolute ridiculous dominance, but he also had stretches of where he got lit up. And so, I still think he's a very excellent top flight pitcher, and I expect huge numbers from him whenever he comes back from being injured. But which is why I would still give him an A plus, even though he didn't have that great of a 2018 or 2019. I mean, but yeah, that's my gospel in the Mets. They should be in the running. I think if they had Syndergaard, this is an easy. I think they may have a edge over the Nationals, but I expect it to be a rat race. I think the NL Central and the NL East are the two most interesting races this season. So yeah, that's it for me. Where are we going next?
Well, tomorrow we go to the Giants.
That should be fun.
Yep, New York Football Giants. Wednesday, you go to the Nationals. Thursday, I get to go to the other New York Football team with the Jets, and Friday we round it out with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Hey Mike, longtime fan here. You ever think the New York Football Giants and then you think when the San Francisco Giants come into town, them and the New York Baseball Giants ever get together and have lunch or something?
That was potentially one of the cringiest things I've heard today.
Oh no, listen, Mike Francesa, his show, for nothing else, was great for really horrible phone calls, and they were hilarious. People just trolling him with that shit.
That was definitely something else. We'll just leave it at that.
And that's the thing. He's retired officially from his daily show. I'm gonna miss the calls. Like, hey, what about this bum Aaron Judge? What do you think we could trade him for? Like, just some
Bum.
ridiculous shit like that. Oh God, people who call into radio shows are all deranged, and like not like Gary Sanchez will hit like 3 home runs one night, and they'll be like, "Oh, this guy's amazing. Why can't the rest of the team back him up?" And then he'll like strike out 3 times the next night and be like, "This guy's a bum, Mike. What do we got to do to get rid of him?" Like they're all delusional. I'm gonna miss them because I not that I religiously listen to Mike Francesa because I just don't, but I always found his call section hilarious.
I drive whatever. I don't drive often anymore, obviously, because of certain quarantine that has taken place. But when I used to drive, I would always have the ESPN radio on, and I would listen to crazy calls like that all the time. Um, and it's amazing to me that these people actually like call in and then have these like I'm sorry, stupid things to say because like I'm gonna be honest with you, I've probably over the course of the past like maybe 4 years or so since I've really been like driving and listening to sports radio. I've probably listened to thousands of hours of sports radio, and there have absolutely been times where I've been like, oh, maybe I like would call and I have actually something interesting to add to this conversation. But never have I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna call in and berate these guys and have some stupid like off the wall shit to say just because I can. Like, what goes through people's minds, man?
I have no idea. My favorite radio show is the Michael K show. So just like listening to people just calling with the ridiculous shit and tell the guy who watches the Yankees for a living, all these people suck and need to be traded is just hilarious. It's like this guy calls their games. He talks with David Cohn and Paul O'Neill and a million other guys they have in the yes booth is like his pat as his job. I think just hilarious, always hilarious. Like and then, every once in a while they had this one guy who said who called in and said they should have been pinch hitting for Judge in this big clutch spot that lost the Yankees the game. But meanwhile, it was like Judge's rookie season when he was dominating everyone.
I heard I was minding my own business driving one day and DeGrom had his one like somewhat shaky start of the season because he has to have one. Like he's
No,
allowed to
yeah.
have. He's a human being. He's
No, no,
allowed to have
last
one.
year he like broke some record for like scoreless streak and then gave up like 4 runs or something.
Yeah. So he
Well,
gave
it
up
was
4 runs and I was driving minding my own business and somebody calls in. That's it. This is the downturn right here. The season is over. His career is over. We need to trade him ASAP. And like you just hear the I don't remember who was on exactly, but everybody was just in there like in awe that this is actually like they have to like take their time to respond to this because it's just so ridiculous at its core that like the guy had one shaky start and so you're just like no career over. Get him out of here. I don't want him anymore. And meanwhile, he's the best pitcher in the league.
I know people are so they're
Something
a
else,
bunch of
man.
fragile old people who I don't know. They're used to. I don't even know what the fuck they're used to. They're just insane.
Something else, man. Something else. All right, I think we've rambled now for enough.
Yes,
So,
I think we have. Anyway, so drop a like, comment, subscribe. If you're a Mets fan that thinks they're gonna win all 60 games this season, let me know. If you think that this rotation with Rick Porcello and Michael Waka is worth an A plus, you're wrong. But let me know. Um, you know,
you're
uh,
wrong, but I'm here to listen to it.
come join the Discord. Um, also hit notifications to be notified whenever we upload. And we will see you next time with whatever team I'm talking about next. Honestly, I've already forgotten.
The Nationals.
The Nationals, yes, that'll be a fun one. So, yeah, this has been Blow Up the Team, and thanks for watching.
Peace.